I have to do it again. Hi, DG. Hi, Stephen.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, DG. Hi, Megan. Hi, Michelle.
Hey, Lisa, this is Jim.
Hi, Jim. How you doing?
Good. I found the link. So if you get an email from me, never mind.
Okay, that's good to know. Hey, Joe,
Yes, ma'am.
heads up, I just heard from Rick Seiler and he is traveling. He thought he was going to be able to log in, but he cannot. So if you would be so kind as to chair this meeting for us today, it would be most appreciated.
Oh, does that mean my pay goes up?
It doubles. It
Oh,
doubles.
2 times 0 is still 0.
Oh, I
Still zero.
realize that.
I'm showing we still have like 3 minutes to go.
Yeah, we do. And I'm just trying to get my presentation up, so. And so just a heads up to everybody, we have Michelle Binion is going to be clerking the meeting today, since Megan is going to be presenting our development review stuff, so. See if I can get to the place where I share it. Can everybody see the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Mhm. Oh, shit.
Well, it's 4 o'clock. Should we call it to order?
I think so.
Are we missing anyone that we are expecting?
I do not know. I didn't hear from anybody that they were going to be absent. There's only 8 of us. And so who are we missing? Oh, we're missing,
Rick.
there we go, Dale Robbins, and I'm not sure who's on the iPad. So I guess we could, it looks like we,
Yeah, I'm on the iPad, so maybe that's what you saw. This is Jim Baumker.
okay, so I think we're missing Conrad. But I haven't heard from him one way or the other, so I guess my suggestion is if he hops on, that's great. We'll make a note of it. But I think you can probably call it to order if you feel so inclined, Joe.
Well, let's bring it to order and let's do our roll call, please, ma'am.
Okay, Richard Seiler, he's absent. Joe Mann,
Here,
Dale Robbins,
He's
Dale, you're
here, but
muted.
his mic's not on.
Dale, you will find the button to turn off the mute at the very bottom of your page. If you take your cursor down and click at the bottom, you'll have you'll see an option to click on there.
There he is.
Yes, I'm here. I'm just finishing up a phone call, so I'll be with you just as soon as I get off this call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
DG Garcia,
So,
Tim Olson,
Tim?
Yeah, here.
um,
Stephen Ramirez,
no,
Present.
and
in
Conrad
my
Brand.
mind, in my mind, I don't see how you can work.
Dale, we can hear your phone call.
Every job
Hey, Dale,
requires
can you mute the camera?
visual
Your
acuity,
mic?
and
You can mute him, Lisa.
I just don't see how you can work.
I don't have the ability.
However, I'm not the judge.
Oh, God, I do have the.
Okay,
Sorry about that. All right, okay.
Priceless. This is priceless.
All right, yes. So anyhow, so welcome everybody. First of all, before we get too far into the agenda, I did want to introduce Amy Muller-Lyle. She is our new senior planner. We're very excited to have her on board. And Amy, do you want to share just a little bit about your background?
Sure. I graduated from Eastern Washington with a master's in planning and a master's in public administration. And then I went to work for the city of Connell. And after that, I worked with the city of Kelso, and I worked with Lisa at the city of Spokane. And then I took a little COVID break, and then now I'm back with the city of Liberty Lake.
Welcome.
Welcome. Awesome.
And Michelle, will you, just to note, Conrad just joined us. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Joe, for the review of the agenda.
yes. Is there any additions or changes to the agenda for anyone?
Nope.
So, could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing none, we move to minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes, or did anyone see any changes or additions that needed to be done for the minutes from February 9th? We have a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes from February 9th.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Let's move on.
So I'm gonna, at this point in time, turn it over to Megan Abhold, who's going to provide you with our annual development review. And Megan, you can go ahead and share your screen.
All right. Hello, everyone. So we're just going to go over what happened last year, all the permits that were issued, including residential and commercial. So let's get started. If I can switch it. So summarizing what happened between 2020 and 2021. In 2020, we had 4 big commercial buildings. We had Harvest Parkway, Commercial Phase 1. We had the River District Welcome Center, Swiss Productions, and the Huntwood Addition. Those 4 projects came in about $11.2 million. This year was a lot more. We have the Harvest Parkway Commercial Phase 2. There's the River District Brewery, River District Dental Building, Western States Cat came in, Tesla, B&E Electric, Carpet One, Palenque and Children Dental Village, Custom Fabric, that second building, and then Knox Phase 2 Building 1. Those 10 projects came at $24.4 million. When it comes to the new commercial permits, the amount of square footage that we gained this year was 128,000 square feet. That is significantly more in 2021 rather than 2020. And we also didn't have any public square footage that came in this year. The commercial tenant improvement permits, there was a lot this year. A lot of people were refreshing the current buildings that they had. Came in less than in 2020, came in at nearly 64,000 square feet. We did not have any multifamily permits this year. Therefore, there wasn't any square footage that came in. That's significantly less than 2020. The number of units is 0 this year. And then when it comes to single family residential permits, we had 152 permits issued in 2020 versus 108 units that were issued in 2021. The main areas that had residential permits were Legacy Ridge West. We had Chutina 3rd, 4th, and 5th edition, as well as River Crossing East and Rocky Hill North. And then here's another chart showing kind of the trend that's been happening over the past 18 years. You can see there's an obvious dip in 08, and then we had a steady incline. And then this past year was a little bit less than the previous years. I broke it down by subdivision, so you can kind of see which area in the city is building the most right now. Legacy Ridge West is the one that is building the most at the moment, with Chutina coming in at 27% of the 108, and then River Crossing East, Rocky Hill coming pretty close to it as well. The preliminary plats that came in, I broke it down by how much is left, what has been finalized so far, how much has been issued, how much has been applied for, and then how much is still remaining. And the dark green is the not yet applied. Let me know if you have any questions so far. It's a lot. Permits issued. In 2020, there was 692 permits issued. Last year in 2021, there was 646. And then this year so far, there's 135. So just kind of what the trend's been going on this year. So far, we're projected to be more in the first half this year than the last year. Okay, the type of permits that have been issued, I broke them down between residential, commercial, and kind of the other permits that we kind of take care of, including grading and right-of-way permits. The residential, there's numerous of the new and mechanical and re-roofs that came in this year. Commercial, has also been broken down according to each section. The miscellaneous permits for residential, those include like shops, sheds, deckings, also kind of the retaining walls that come in for some plats. Commercial would also include pallet racking systems, things like that. For land use activity, there's a lot of land use that happened last year, and it's also continuing into this year. The plats that have been finalized were River Crossing District Town Center, where the River District Welcome Center is located right now, the Chutina 5th Edition, River Crossing East 2nd Edition, Legacy Ridge West 1st Edition, River Crossing 2020 Edition, Rocky Hill 6th Edition, Legacy Ridge West 2nd Edition, and Hawkstone 3rd Edition. Right now, Hawkstone 3rd Edition has been approved. It's ready to be recorded. We're just waiting on the hillside to be completed prior to it being fully recorded to the county. And then some other things that have been happening would be the 19th Amendment to the BSP. That's kind of like the whole Home Depot area. It's 19 amendments to that one. The Meadowood Technology Campus rezone amendment, the Central Valley School District Gun Club annexation, as well as the Point preliminary BSP. Upcoming land use activities, we have Hawkstone 4th Edition that's about to be submitted, Chutina 6th Edition, Legacy Ridge West 3rd Edition, and River Crossing 2020 1st Edition. There's also a lot of BSPs that are planned on being applied for. There's a binding site amendment for Les Schwab. That will be where the north east corner of Liberty Lake Ave and Appleway, a Central Valley School District binding site plan and boundary line adjustment. Another amendment for the BSP 5096, a Gemstar BSP, Neighborly Ventures, Centennial Properties, that's north of the freeway, as well as Bella Lago Phase 2 preliminary plat. Upcoming commercial buildings that we are about to receive, we've already received Ace Hardware, Bike Hub, Idaho Central Credit Union. We are still waiting on Les Schwab, Project Apple, the River District mixed use commercial building. There's a proposal for 2 industrial buildings on East Mission. Knox Phase 2 second building, we just received that this week. The River District Bakery Cider House, I actually just got off the phone with Ben Scandalis today, and they are planning on submitting the shell for that by the end of the week. There's the Trailhead tenant improvement, and then the Courtyard East Apartments, which he also said he's planning on at the end of the month or beginning next month. And then I created kind of a map of everything for you to kind of visually see what is going on in the city, what is remaining, the commercial buildings that are occurring, where they are in the plats that have been submitted. So you can see in Chutina, there's areas that can still have commercial in the River District area over here. This is River Crossing 2020. River Crossing East is on the top. There's a lot left, but we're still really busy right now. All the purple is commercial that we pretty much received applications for already or are about to. Yellow are the BSPs and land projects that we are about to receive applications for. And then you can look at all the little green are the single family residentials that have been finalized. The blue has they've been issued. Pink means that they've been applied for and are being reviewed right now and are about to be issued. And then the red is that have not been applied for yet. And that's it. Do you have any questions?
You guys have been busy.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's an
Busy.
understatement.
Are there any questions on anything or?
No.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Megan. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen.
Okay.
So we're going to jump in now to the 2022 through 2027 Capital Facilities Plan, which was adopted by City Council on December 21st of 2021. I thought you'd be interested in just kind of seeing an overview of what has been approved. And I wanted to just kind of start by explaining that the Capital Facilities Plan is a document that really looks at the city's capital investments for both new capital projects as well as asset management over a 6-year period. So it's trying to anticipate the needs of the city. Our 2022 or the current year for it is always addressed as part of the budget process. So we really start working on this in the summer, trying to get ready for the mayor's budget, and we start workshopping it with City Council in the fall. But in terms of what was adopted for the 2022 through 2027, I'm going to focus today principally on the capital investments that are underway today in the city, the 2022 capital investments, because it's what you're going to be seeing on the street and what's going on, in addition to all the development proposals that are coming in. So here's just kind of a breakdown of the investments that the City Council has voted to invest in 2022. And you see a big chunk of it is in parks and public facilities. But there's also a pretty substantial portion that's in transportation. Trails and pedestrian pathways, we also have some funding in there, as well as equipment and technology, which just keeping up with our growing, with the computer and technology demands for our growing staff, technology to try and address the virtual and in-person meetings with our city council, et cetera, is ongoing, as well as the maintenance equipment that we need to keep our parks and public facilities looking the way the community really values. So here's a map of our projects, and I'm going to walk you through this if you don't mind. So I'm just going to start going from west to east. So first of all, we are working on sidewalk improvements on Mission Avenue. There is a gap of approximately 3 lots between Aladdin and Cavalier Court that does not have a sidewalk. Because there's a sidewalk the rest of the way down Mission that ties into a flashing beacon serving Selkirk Middle School. This was important to fill in this gap to provide a safe route to school. And so that is one of the projects that actually was just awarded by City Council, and will be beginning work shortly. So we're excited about that. The purple projects, by the way, in this map are projects by others. So one of the things that's pretty exciting to talk about is the fact that as part of Greenstone's River Crossing 2020 final plat, they were required to rebuild Mission Avenue and to widen it to provide sidewalk and multimodal path amenities, street trees, etc. Now, they actually were only required to do the north half of it that was adjacent to their project, but because Centennial Properties is also planning on coming in, they're doing the whole street. This is a tip and lift project that's reimbursable, which is why it's in our capital facilities plan. So it was to minimize disruption to the public. that project is underway. Now, I got to give you a warning on this, that we will be closing Mission Avenue this summer while the project is underway, and basically from late June until mid-August to get this project underway. Again, the route, the alternate route is going to be via Indiana Avenue. And so fortunately, since Indiana Avenue is now built, we can do that. And that's necessary both for this project, which really spans both sides of the new Kramer Parkway, as well as the roundabout that's going in on the north end of the Kramer Parkway bridge and road extension. It also extends down to the south to Kramer Parkway. We are realigning this intersection as part of the Kramer Parkway project, and we'll also be installing a signal on Country Vista at the Kramer Parkway Country Vista intersection. And that's all part of the WashDOT project. But we do have some significant skin in the game for that project, and I'll talk about that in a second. We also have, as projects by others, we also have the Cataldo Road extension as part of Western States CAT. They are extending the roadway from basically where it ends with the RV store all the way to the end of their parcel. You'll see in 2023, there's a second phase to Cataldo Avenue. Again, this is a tip and lift reimbursable project, but it will be extending likely somewhere to the east into this Centennial project and then to the north up here. We're expecting a commercial binding site plan in this area in the near future. And so, but that will be a project that's done by, again, this piece of it's being done by Western States CAT. The rest of it will be done by Centennial Properties as they develop their property here. We also have a partial reconstruction of Kramer Parkway going on from Sprague all the way to Country Vista, or a little bit shy of it, where basically where the WashDOT project stops, ours starts. And for this one, this is really a rehabilitation project because we've experienced it, because of the condition of the road, we're trying to salvage the sub base of it. If we didn't do this now, we would have a much more expensive project replacing the whole thing. But as part of this, we've already gotten improvements done on the eastern side of this by Legacy Ridge. So we've had sidewalks added, street trees, etc. But we will be, and we have done the frontage improvements along the Public Works yard. We will be doing a bike lane, sidewalk tying into what we have up here at Country Vista. And we're also coordinating with D.R. Horton, who's doing the Legacy Ridge West project, and Liberty Lake Sewer and Water District for a water line that D.R. Horton is required to do as part of their Legacy Ridge West project, and for a water reclamation line that the Water and Sewer District desires to put in. We also have here our Public Works yard. So this year, we've been working on this for a couple of years, and the yard has taken great form. This year, we're actually going to be installing the building and the remaining site improvements, including parking for the Public Works building. And so we are at 90% design right now. We expect to go out to bid shortly for that project. So that's pretty exciting. That's really, as we grow up as a city and we've expanded our streets and maintenance department, is absolutely essential that we have an adequate facility to support their needs. Legacy Ridge Country Vista Signal has been bid, and we've had our pre-con meeting, and that is starting this week. You're going to see a little bit of minor disruptions, some partial lane closures and whatnot while this is going on. This is a project that we have heard from all the neighbors in Legacy Ridge how difficult it is to make a left-hand turn from this intersection, particularly during AM and PM peak hours. And this will really alleviate that. The other thing that's really great about these signal projects on Country Vista is they're also going to really provide a break in the traffic that's going to enable pedestrians to have a better opportunity to cross Country Vista at crosswalks, obviously. So moving forward, another huge project that I'm sure if you've been following City Council, you're all well aware of is the trailhead improvements, both for the clubhouse, but also the pools and netting for the driving range. And so that is going on here, and we are in the throes of that project. Just going north here, we do also have, so Indiana Road has for the most part been completed and the signal has been installed. There are some minor improvements that need to be made that we're waiting on a piece for the pedestrian actuation. And then there'll be some concrete work to meet ADA requirements. Right now, you'll see that the signal is bagged because we can't light it up until we meet ADA requirements. And so as soon as that happens, you'll see this bagged, or we'll bring the bag off and make it flashing for a week. And we probably, within the next month or so, I think we'll probably see that signal active. Why it's in our 2022 program, even though most of the work was done last year, is because, again, this is TIF and LIFT reimbursable, and they have not yet submitted it for the TIF and LIFT reimbursement. We also have listed in 2022 a roundabout at Wellington and Harvard Parkway. Greenstone is working on the design for it. I'm not sure when they're going to pull the trigger on it. And that's one of the challenges. We don't have control over the timing of these projects by others, but we know it's coming. So we did have it on. And as I said, I believe that they have the design underway. We also have a number of projects that are really addressing asset management, the maintenance projects that we need to have at Pavilion Park, at City Hall, the library and PD, and Rocky Hill Park. We're also doing at the intersection of Country Vista and Appleway. We have money in this year's budget to do a design to add a turn lane to improve the traffic congestion that we see at the PM peak hour with people leaving Meadowwood, heading to Idaho, etc. So that has gotten to be a relatively busy intersection at the stop sign at Country Vista Boulevard. And we also have a couple citywide projects. We do have a total of 6 pedestrian flashing beacons that have been identified. They're in design right now. They'll go through a prioritization to see which ones we do this year. We have not yet identified which 3 will be done this year and which 3 will be done next year. And that will be based on kind of a technical analysis in terms of the need for those. We also have the Stormwater Master Plan, which is funded by a state grant from Ecology that actually we have been waiting more than a year to get the grant contract for. We still haven't gotten it, and we can't start the project until we get the grant application, but we are expecting that in the next several months, and we'll get that underway. And that Stormwater Master Plan is actually pretty significant because we are required to do a national discharge permit because of our size coming up here in 2025. So this Stormwater Master Plan that's being paid for by Ecology will set the table for us to file for the national discharge permit that we're required to get. It's once we're over 10,000 in population, but because it's based on actual census population, we did not hit it until this last census. So anyhow, so that is kind of a summary of the projects that we're doing. Oh, wrong direction. But just to give you a sense about the costs, so the Kramer Parkway overpass and roadway extension, that was part of the three project connecting Washington project that WashDOT is actually doing. It included the Harvard Road Bridge widening and ramp project, which is basically done other than some striping. The Barker Road interchange, but the Kramer Parkway was the third piece of it. Our mayor and city council went to Olympia to lobby to have this added to that project. And in order to secure that bridge over I-90, the city had to put in a total of $6 million. Now, we did get some credit for right-of-way and for the design of Kramer Parkway. But this year, the balance of that $6 million was $2.3 million. And that is what our contribution is this year. At the end of the project, when all three of those projects are closed out, we do have the potential that we may owe some money if we're over budget. Right now, the projects are under budget. And so we're feeling pretty good about that, but you never know until it's all completely closed out. So, it is an interesting construction market right now. So we'll see how that goes, but the contract is in place and you see the work out there. In fact, the crew is getting ready to really get active again. Probably next week, you're really going to start seeing some activity out on that site. And of course, one of our big projects was the Trailhead Clubhouse and Driving Range. Also, other big ticket items are the Public Works building and facility improvements, and Kramer Parkway partial reconstruction. So that's kind of that's a summary of our capital facilities plan. I really just wanted to kind of share with you what's going on. We've got a lot, in addition to just regular development, we've got a lot of capital projects going on. And so anyhow, I stand for questions.
Any questions, anyone?
Thanks for all your hard work. This is a lot of work.
Yeah, it is.
It's an exciting time for the city for sure.
Absolutely. So we'll move on to the annual code and comp plan amendment cycle.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump in just on a really high level. I wanted to share with you some thoughts, and I actually have just a little bit more information since I put together your packet with the potential dockets. So I want to kind of walk through that a little bit.
Sure.
So the first item on the agenda is zoning map updates. So as part of that, we do need to address the, hold on one second, the 2021 annexation for the Central Valley School District. That was, I think that was, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once and it's not working very well. So anyhow, the second thing is at the council meeting last night, council did approve a resolution, or at last week, council did approve a resolution that would address the split zoning on this particular property that was created at the time Central Valley School District annexed the high school property. And the property had a zoning, a little over 10 acres was M2 zone, but when they did a boundary line adjustment to address, to basically combine properties for the school, they also evened out the property line with the property to the north and did a land swap. That left 3 acres of what had been annexed in as P zone to on this parcel, and we do have an allowance in code to we do have an allowance in code to provide for an administrative solution to that, as long as the zoning that's proposed is the majority zoning on that particular property. So council did that last night. We need to clean up the map now. Finally, we still don't know the answer to the MTZ zone change that you all heard last year. that is coming to council. Likely hearing is April 26th. And so whether or not we're changing that, we will have that information before we have to actually work on the zoning map. So that's one of the changes. Another change we had talked about was the issue with garages and carport requirements for manufactured homes. As I mentioned to you, this is a limited use. Manufactured homes on individual lots is a limited use in the R1, the R2, and the R3 zone in the city. It really only exists in the R1 and R2 zone, actually, and most of it is in the vicinity of Mission Avenue. Most of it is south of Mission Avenue in the north of the freeway, but a little bit of it is on Mission Avenue north of the freeway. There's a section that's also kind of intermixed with some River District properties. And one of the requirements is that the manufactured home shall have a garage or carport constructed of like materials. When nearby residences have carports or garages, the city may require an attached or detached garage where they would be consistent with the predominant construction of the immediately surrounding residences. So here's the challenge with some of that. First of all, most of the mobile homes in this area are circa 1970s and 1980s, maybe intermixed with a few 1990s. Some of them have carports, not necessarily very pretty carports. Some of them have garages, not necessarily very pretty garages. So this actual requirement has been a bit of an obstacle for people who see on the empty lots within that development moving in a manufactured home to meet the requirements, because they also have to meet snow load. And again, so one of the thoughts that was that we might, I'm sorry, didn't mean to move that. One of the thoughts is that we consider, as part of our annual cycle, eliminating that requirement. We may want to look at other requirements as well there. One of the things that there's a lot of discussion about is whether or not the requirement of having not less than 1,000 square feet is something that also may be an obstacle to affordable housing. And we can talk more about the particular limited use regulations for manufactured homes on individual lots. But we thought that was something that was worthy of bringing forward to Planning Commission for your consideration. Another one, and this is really, I had almost forgotten about this, because every time building height comes up, we get a, what? What does that say? And you try and draw it, and I've actually had where we've gone 3 or 4 rounds before the developer actually understood our regulation, and it's really convoluted. So I want you to hear this. So building height is the vertical distance above a reference datum measured to the highest point of the roof. Reference datum shall be selected by either of the following, whichever yields a greater height of building. The elevation of the highest adjoining sidewalk or ground surface with a 5-foot horizontal distance of within a 5-foot horizontal distance of an exterior wall of the building when such sidewalk or ground surface is not more than 10 feet above the lowest grade. Or an elevation 10 feet higher than the lowest grade when the sidewalk or ground surface described in subsection 1 above is more than 10 feet above the lowest grade. The height of a stepped or terraced building is the maximum height of any segment of the building. Not included in the maximum height are chimneys, bell towers, steeples, et cetera, et cetera. Within residential zones, bell towers, steeples, and similar features are included within the maximum height and shall conform to the height requirements of the R1, R2, and R3 zone. So anyhow, it's a very convoluted definition, and everybody, whenever this comes up, and it comes up once or twice a year, we have a lot of topographically challenged developments in the city, and more so coming up in the near future as the last phase of Legacy Ridge West comes into the equation. And as some others of the binding site plans. There's a binding site plan as part of, or an amendment to the binding site plan as part of BSP 9650. That's kind of between the commercial properties on Country Vista and Legacy Ridge West, that has some real topographic challenges. And this is really a bear. And so I just wanted to share with you, just to give you a sense, there's a variety of different definitions. International Building Code, which again, our building official, our plans examiners use on a regular basis, describes the vertical distance from building height as the vertical distance from grade plane, which is, and this is an abbreviated version of that also, the average of a finished ground level adjoining the building at the exterior wall. And there's more to it than that, but that's the simple version, to the average height of the highest roof. Walla Walla has a much simpler version, the vertical distance of a building measured from the finished grade of the front yard to the finished point, or to the highest point of the roof. But that only deals with the front of the building. So that kind of creates kind of an inequity between the home on the downside of that slope and the home that's built on the upside of the slope that's being built into the slope. Just because if it's taken from the front elevation, so if your daylight basement is facing the street, you've got a much more restrictive building height. And there's a couple others also that I threw in just to kind of give you a flavor for the fact that different people define it differently, depending upon what you're trying to get at. Not trying to necessarily hone down into what it should be at this meeting, but just to give you a flavor for the fact that there's a lot of different definitions for building height, and ours, as far as I can tell, is one of the most convoluted. So we'd like to drill into that a little bit more and kind of drill into the benefits of maybe some different definitions that we see out there in our context, and maybe come up with a better definition for building height for the city. So that would be another one that staff would propose. The third one, and I need to get some water or something. The next one that we talked about, and this is one that Rick Seiler mentioned, oh, let's go back and look at our old work program. This was one of the few that had not yet been addressed. The codification of the River District was one, and this was the other, the parking code amendments. And one of the challenges that we have with our parking code, and and I appreciate the fact that we want to minimize parking and the heat island effect, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that we see is that I'm frequently getting administrative variance requests for parking, because in many cases, our parking standards don't even meet kind of the minimal requirements that are identified in the parking generation manual put out by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, which is kind of the go-to for this sort of thing. And they do give you ranges and whatnot, but in many cases, our parking is significantly understated. But in several cases, we found it to be significantly overstated. And so it might be time to really refresh our parking standards and make sure that they're reasonable and that they're meeting the needs of development. Another one that came up, and this is the mayor is requesting that we consider an amendment to provide for RVs and mini storage in commercial zones. So what we're looking at, and this is to benefit some businesses, we have a number of businesses that do RV sales and service. They have lots of RVs parked in their parking lot and in their service bays and whatnot. But we do not allow RV storage, nor do we allow mini storage. And the proposal is to consider it as potentially a limited use in the commercial zones, which would be C1, C2, and RDC, the River District Commercial. the thought would be that we went through this process with the RV sales and service. And so similar to what we required in the C1 zone for that, we would suggest that it only be permitted on sites that are at least 300 feet away from any residential use or zone. One of the great things is now that we have updated our landscape code, we actually have some really good standards that we could apply to the landscaping around RV mini storage, storage or mini storage. And that would be, we could surround it by a type 1 visual screen, which requires a 6-foot high solid fence or wall, and also a 10-foot landscape buffer on the interior of that lot, with evergreen trees to grow together as a continuous screen in 15 years, as I said, inside the fence. It also would require type 3 landscape buffer along the street frontage. So outside the fence, you'd have that visual, see-through buffer that we require along street frontage. So that would be the thoughts for how to approach it. Now we've talked about this in the past. There's no zone in the city right now that allows for RV storage or mini storage. And it's worth a discussion to see if we can open up the potential for other businesses. And again, if we do it in C1 and C2, it would also make sense that we allowed it in River District commercial zones as well. And so that's, again, something for more discussion, but proposed to be part of the annual cycle. We've also talked about sign code amendments, and a couple things that I want to say is that basically you've heard me say this before, the sign code amendments are a heavy lift, but we do have to address the sign code in terms of some case law that point to the need for content neutral regulations. And what I mean by content neutral regulations is that if you have to read a sign to understand what the regulations are, it's not content neutral. And so if you have to look at, and it's a real estate sign, oh, there's something for sale or lease, oh, that's one regulation. If it's a political sign, it's a different regulation. That's a non-starter that essentially does not pass constitutional muster. And so we are proposing to look at that. It's also something that we've heard a lot from our business community that we need to consider. We need to balance the aesthetics that we so value in our community with the need to be able to identify businesses. And so this will be an interesting one. And I want to, Amy Muller-Lyle comes with quite a bit of experience on sign code amendments and in this particular issue. So this is one that Amy is going to be leading. And Amy, I wonder if you could share with us just a few thoughts on what you think needs to be incorporated into a sign code amendment process.
Sure. So when I worked on the sign code for the city of Spokane, I did quite a bit of training and research on just what to do because they are almost invariably contentious discussions. And it was pretty unanimous that visual preference surveys are really helpful for finding the balance in your community for business needs and your traffic safety and aesthetics. It also helps with a lot of defensibility should we get challenged on it. Having gone through the process of finding out exactly what matters to the community and exactly why we're regulating what we're regulating can be very helpful should we experience a court challenge.
Thank you, Amy.
Visual preference surveys can be a bit cumbersome. They can take quite a bit of time, but it was pretty unanimous that it was worth it across the board.
The other thing I'll say, just to piggyback on what Amy has said, is that it's important that we have collaboration in the process and that we get feedback from the sign companies and the businesses as well as the community. And so this is one that our sign code, to amend our sign code, it does not require a comprehensive plan amendment. So staff is recommending that this is something we move forward with and include in our work program. But let's not rush ourselves to try and do it as part of the annual cycle. As you will recall, we've had some other code amendments that took a little longer, such as the landscape code. And I would respectfully suggest that this is one that we should take our time on to make sure we get it right. The next one is, we've talked about before, codifying the SAPs in the development codes. So we've got the River District and Liberty Lake Village SAPs that are outside of the development code. They have their own regulations that were approved in the specific area plans. One of the things that is frustrating with this, I think, to both developers and the public, is it is not terribly transparent. So people have a hard time figuring out what development codes apply. And really, it's a bit of a heavy lift, but the zones themselves are pretty easy. The standalone zones within the River District is Liberty Lake Village is a little bit more challenging, but I think that we can deal with most of that through zoning district regulations. But we will also have to address in the design standards some overlay zones for the River District and for Liberty Lake Village. And I have some thoughts on how to do that. And I think that it's just a heavy lift. It also is a great opportunity because there are some code requirements, particularly in River District, that may be actually better than some of our development code regulations. And the flip side is there's some things in our development code that really are better than what's in the River District. So I think there's a real opportunity to have some collaboration between the owners of these two projects and this codification of the development code into one code that the public can address. But again, I think this one also is one that merits a little bit more time to get it right. And I think that's one of the things that we talked about at our design review meeting this afternoon, was the fact that it also may present an opportunity. We've all talked about the fact that some of our architectural design standards are very dated, and there may be an opportunity to revisit those as part of that and look and see if what still makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and maybe even raise the bar a little bit. So anyhow, so that's just some thoughts on that. And again, I think that coordination with Greenstone and with the new owner for Hawkstone, Stonehill area, I think is going to be pretty important. And then we get to the privately initiated comp plan and development code amendments this year that will have to be added to the docket. Our deadline is not until March 31st. And historically, I don't get applications until March 30th or March 31st. I've had some kick the tires on some ideas. I don't know if they're going to come forward or not, but I do have one that I know about. And that is personal services as a limited use in the I zone. So let me get into this a little bit. So in the I zone, which is the light industrial zone, we do allow commercial, like general retail, is a limited use, but it's allowed if it's adjacent to or abutting an outright permitted use in that zone. So we have, as we were looking at the bike hub it's a bike shop, a bike repair shop, but it'll also have a sales component. That's absolutely allowed under those standards. We have a microbrewery that's also going to have a tasting room, also absolutely allowed under those limited use standards. And they were also looking at a barber shop, which hadn't been talked about in all the pre-development, et cetera. They have somebody who's interested in that, and they reached out to us. And unfortunately, in our zoning regs, Personal services, including barbershops, hairstylists, and nail salons, are listed as not permitted in the I zone. And so the proposal is that it's similar enough to general retail that perhaps, or like a tasting room or something, that perhaps we should allow it as a limited use, similar to general retail, but only allow it when it's abutting or adjacent to a permitted use. And so that's coming in as a private amendment, but because we have this project moving forward through the development, through development reviews and whatnot, and because they have a potential tenant on the line, this is a pretty easy lift. And so staff would recommend that we also pull this one out of the annual cycle. Again, it doesn't require a comp plan amendment. It's just a zone change or a text amendment, that we pull it out and we run this on a fast track. I think we can get this through the entire process, including city council, probably in 4 to 5 months, which would really help this developer. That's staff's recommendation on that one as well. And then what remains to be seen what else comes in for private development. So before I get off of this, I just want to see if you all have any feedback for staff. Our next meeting, we do have to come back with a docket for your consideration, but I'd love to hear your feedback on what we're looking at right now.
Lisa, I don't see the problem at all with taking up the personal services as a limited use in the I zone. I think if we can uncuff some business owners who are looking to potentially come in, particularly for personal services, then I'm all for it. Beats another Les Schwab coming in.
Indeed, it does. Any other thoughts on any of this? So again, a couple things that staff's recommending. We're recommending that the SAP be uncoupled from the annual cycle because we think it'll take a little longer to do it right. The sign cone be uncoupled from the annual cycle because that will take a little longer also. And the others that are really just staff recommendations to kind of, again, we're always trying to do a process of continual improvement of our code. And so this is an opportunity. The others are just an opportunity to maybe make some inroads in that process.
I agree that this makes sense. My question is, can you give me, it says personal services and they all seem to be in a related industry. Can you give me an example of another personal service where someone else might want to be included?
I'm going to go to the definitions, and I actually think it's probably personal services is limited to probably these things, possibly a tattoo shop.
Okay.
Massage parlor.
Yes. But I want to go to because I always go to the definitions in the code. Okay. So let me go there and give me a second. Personal care services, which is actually how it's listed. Barber and beauty shops, cosmetology and cosmetic salons, diet counseling centers, electrolysis, hair removal salons, tanning, and fingernail salons is what the definition says. But I would agree that tattoo and massage parlors, et cetera, would fit within those categories. So again, no need to make a decision. All these things that we've identified in the docket and those things that beyond, we will be bringing back to workshop with you and workshop specific wording as well as kind of options within them. So it's not like we're asking you to make a decision. I just wanted to give you enough information that you had a flavor for what we're thinking about. And I see DG's hand.
I hope that we'll be prudent enough when we talk about massage parlors, that we look at some of the massage industry that's already here in Liberty Lake, and so that we really take a look at what we're deciding is a massage parlor and how we equate the two, because Plush does massages, and so they too are a massage parlor. So we want to really be clear so we don't discriminate or inadvertently, by mistake, eliminate something that can hold us accountable much later.
Again,
Just a thought, just a thought.
no, I appreciate that. We actually do have a definition for massage parlor in our code also. And although it's not specifically listed in the zoning matrix. And the definition for massage parlor is a building or structure where persons obtain massage treatment and or advice, where persons use facility for non-sexual relaxation purposes.
Mhm, mhm. So as long as we're clear on what's going on, because I don't, oh, am I on mute? You know, perhaps we don't know what's going on in the industry that says massage. So it would always be good for us to just take a look so we've done our due diligence, so no one can accuse us of being favoring one over another. What did you say, Stephen? You're on mute. You're on mute.
You're muted, Stephen, and it looks
Muted.
like
No, we want to hear it.
you want to hear it.
I was saying what we all know you want to say.
You got me. Yeah.
Well, I think we'd have to explore how far away from these light industrial zones are from residential, just to, if they're butted up to one another, put a distance,
Right.
a separation in there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And absolutely, that's something that could be included within that definition, you know, just as we're proposing for the RV and mini storage.
Sure, absolutely.
Sure.
Did anybody have any other thoughts on any of the docket items that we were proposing? Again, as I said, this personal service one is actually a privately initiated one, but all the rest of them are city initiated. So again, I appreciate any feedback you have.
I'm glad you brought up the architectural design standards, like similar to the meeting that we had at 3 o'clock, that we can take a look at that stuff and start working. That to me is pretty important to me. I think DG made a tremendous point that by us just rubber stamping ideas without challenging maybe some of the finishes and textures that are used is probably a mistake, and could be an opportunity for us to help design going forward.
Well, I think that's a really great point, Tim. And it may be that although I thought there was some opportunity for looking at kind of coordinating our architectural design standards between River District and the rest of the city, I do think that it may be worthwhile to just include that as another work program item. I would respectfully suggest that, again, much like the sign code, it's a pretty big lift, and we should not push ourselves to try and do it in the annual cycle. I think it's worthy of taking the time to do it right and to make sure that we have community, the residential community, as well as the developer and the development community on board with the direction that we're taking. So I'd like to actually suggest that be its own topic, but again, not as part of the annual cycle.
Agreed.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on this before we move on? All right. Well, we're at that time of the meeting where we have reports. And first of all, we have the secretary's report. And I just want to share with you that I want to share with you, and I'm gonna, if you'll excuse me for 1 second, I'm going to try and escape this one. And first of all, I guess I need to stop sharing. Okay. And if you'll bear with me for 1 more second while I pull up an email. I want to read where we're at with open meetings, because this is coming up at all of our commission meetings. And I know that everybody is anxious to get back in person again. But regarding open public meetings, we've heard from MRSC that while they have received a number of questions about whether the upcoming changes to the face mask requirements will change how local governments conduct meetings subject to the Open Public Meetings Act. In short, Proclamation 2028.14 extended by Proclamation 2028.15 remain in effect until specifically modified or the emergency is terminated. What that means is that all meetings are subject to the Open Public Meetings Act are required to be a remote meeting with an optional in-person component. Agencies choosing to hold hybrid meetings must make sure there is sufficient space for everyone that wants to physically attend, including overflow space if necessary, and must comply with any other health directives, including local health orders in effect. So here's the deal, the long and the short of it. City Council is meeting in person, or for the most part in person, but it's primarily a remote meeting with an in-person component. The reason why they can do that is because our City Council has city-issued laptops that they can make both the Zoom and the Granicus work. We don't have the ability, we don't have the staff support to do Granicus for all of our commissions, and we don't have the laptops for our commissions to meet. So the directive that we have gotten is that all of our commissions need to meet remotely until we get further clarification, or we got to change, either the emergency is lifted or the proclamation has been lifted. And so that's kind of where we are. I know we all have questions, and I know many people are anxious to get back to meeting in person, and it doesn't look like it's quite an option just yet. Any questions on that? All righty, well, I don't have anything else in terms of my secretary's report, so we can get back to the presentation, I think, if I can find where it is. I think we're at commission reports.
Any commissioners have reports?
I don't have a report, but I'd like to thank Lisa, who Friday I'm going on a tour of the city to see where projects are coming, where they are slated to be possible developments. And I think that for me is a reward, because even a private citizen should know exactly what's coming. So we're not saying what's going up over there. And so what has become important to me, and I don't know if this is commissioner report or a report out of my understanding, is that I really hope we do not begin to define ourselves as what we see driving down Sprague. And that is the randomization of businesses just going in what I call infill. So there's a hole, let's fill it. Let's put this in it. And before you know it, you have Jack Be Nimble and all sorts of things coming, and you can't back that out. That train can't go back once it has left the port. So the whole idea is that we really start to, if that is our charge, if that's one of our responsibilities, to look at how that happens, to recommend to the council that we don't get ourselves into a bubble of pink and green, yellow and blue, instead of something that becomes more sophisticated. I'm all about sophistication of our community. Anybody can do infill projects. Anybody can land this business next to this business, next to this business, and then a coffee shop. Anyone can do that. We might want to look at how we set ourselves apart from the anything by anyone in any city. Just a thought.
So DG, if I may, and on behalf of, for the other commissioners as well. So the way that this planning commission can have influence over that, there's two ways. One is through the comprehensive plan, which defines the land uses and defines the vision for the city and the policies, the goals and policies in terms of how not just land use works, but economic development and a variety of other things. So that's one way. And that comprehensive plan is a foundation for the development code, which is your zoning ordinance. And one of the things I will say is that if a use is allowed under the development code and it meets all of the other design standards and codes associated with it, all of the other development rules related to how many parking spaces and what kind of landscaping, et cetera, architectural design standards, stormwater, those sorts of things. If it meets all those standards, we must approve it. It's an
Right.
ministerial action. And those ministerial actions do not come to the planning commission.
Right, no, what I'm saying, that's why I said in the beginning, I don't know if this is a commissioner report or just a feeling of something I want to say, because we too are citizens. And so where we encourage people to go out there and state our views on what we want our city to look like. I think because we also have on some issues, a recommendation component to our local government, we may want to take what we know and also position ourselves to add that voice in a council meeting, even though it's not.
Absolutely. And one of the things I will say is that we will be coming up, this body will be starting to dig into the periodic comprehensive plan update. It's due in 2025, by June of 2025, which means that we're going to be really starting it next year. And actually, Amy and I are really starting to dig into all of the foundational stuff that happens related to population projections and allocations and whatnot that happens at the county level, so that we're going to be in a position to help you begin to start digging in as early as next year. And that's a great opportunity, and it's also a great responsibility. So, but it really has the ability to shape what our community is and what it wants to be. And I will say this about that: it's because of the strength of the comprehensive plan and the development code that that the city of Liberty Lake does not look like Spokane Valley or the city of Spokane.
You're here.
Yeah.
Now about that Chick-fil-A.
Very good. Do we have any citizens on? I'm not seeing any
I don't
citizens.
see any
Craig's on here.
citizens on, but
Craig's on here.
do we have any citizen comments?
We've not received any in writing.
No.
No citizen comments from Greg Cronin.
Oh, Greg, you're there. My apologies. I did not see you there.
That's okay. Thank you. I appreciate the meeting today. A lot of good information about what's going on in the city.
Thank you, Greg.
And
Thank you.
I would extend an offer to all of the commissioners that anybody who wants an opportunity to take a tour of the city, I will make time on my schedule to show you what's going on and show you what's coming.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your dedication and commitment to the city. That's all I have.
Anything else for the good of the order? Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
I'll motion to
Second.
adjourn.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you
Welcome,
all.
Amy.
Welcome, Amy.
Have a great rest
Thanks,
of your day.
Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
Thanks, Michelle.
Where's Michelle? Thank you, Michelle.